Hi, my name is Juliana.
My name is Ivani.
And my name is Marika, and you're listening to Unwind the Mind, a podcast by My State of Mind. Today, for our third episode, we'll be discussing some of the language stigma in regards to mental illness, the implications of not taking mental illness seriously, culture differences, as well as being careful when communicating online.
To start off, we're going to go around and just introduce ourselves. I'll start. I'm Juliana. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm the National Director for Maine, a student at Loyola Marymount University, and I love boba.
I'm Marika. I go by she, her, hers. I'm a chapter member at My State of Mind, and a fun fact about me is that I have a dog named Venus, and I go to UC Davis.
Ivani, my pronouns are she, her, hers. And I'm also a chapter member at My State of Mind. And a fun fact about me is that I love stuffed animals and I go to high school. We are not mental health professionals. If you have any serious issues, please seek advice from a mental health professional. This episode of Unwind the Mind is made solely to share our own stories and hopefully create a safe space for others to do the same. In this episode, eating disorders will be discussed. That could possibly trigger someone. With that being said, we hope you all enjoyed today's episode. It's language stigma. And about that, I would like to share a really short story from when I was really, really young, at 6 years old. I had this classmate who, when did something dumb, he would always say, you're autistic. So growing up, I always thought that autistic people were dumb. And a few years back, I realized that they were not. And some people in the autistic spectrum, they had this ability to comprehend math and puzzles and riddles and had this prowess that I really admired. And so I came to understand that there was a false belief I had created around so many people just because one person said one thing too many times when we were younger. And so I came to understand that the language we use, it actually creates a whole belief in our minds that we process later, and then we form an opinion on a thing. So on that, I just wanted to say how important and how exciting it was to me to find out that what we say is really so powerful to a whole personality, as a matter of fact.
Going off what Ivani said, I think that's a really good point that you made, because it is important to understand how we need to recognize how discourse and the language surrounding mental health is important to how people actually perceive it in real life. And it's good that the discussion about mental health is growing on a larger scale. I hear more people talking about it, but we also need to be aware of the misconceptions and the misinformation that is going around, as well as the conversation surrounding mental illness grows. Because I feel like I've heard a lot of people toss around ideas of mental illness like being depressed or having OCD and panic attacks, and using that type of language in a way that misinforms people about what mental illness actually is, and it kind of diminishes the meaning of it, because there are big differences between maybe just getting nervous about something and having an actual panic attack, or liking organization and actually having OCD, which is so much more than that.
Yes, I definitely agree with what you said. And I think one more thing should be added, that when we see that many people are saying that so lightly, so when you hear like hundreds of people in social media or in your friend group or at school, you hear them say, "Oh, I'm so depressed at the moment," you start to think that depression is something normal, and it's not the clinical problem it is. So when someone like they really have this problem and they cannot handle it, and they, in order to continue their lives, and it stop being dysfunctional, they have to seek help. But maybe what holds them back from doing it is the thought that, well, so many people are depressed, why should I seek help, or why should I talk about it more? So I think that's quite a big problem surrounding that topic.
Yeah, and on social media, I continue to see people open up about their mental illnesses, such as depression and anxiety. I think that it's a great thing to do because you realize that you have it and try to cope with it in different ways. However, a lot of people I know make jokes about their depression or anxiety, especially on Twitter, which could bring along the stigma of having these mental illnesses and could possibly make it harder to seek help if we end up normalizing it. For me, I think it could make people believe that they're diagnosing themselves, which makes them even more paranoid and challenging to find professional help. These jokes could also be really sensitive for people who are actually trying to overcome depression or anxiety.
Yes, and on that note, I would also like to add um, another thing. The language we use surrounding the uh, eating disorders, that some people may comment on others' appearance. And so we sometimes, or at least I have multiple times heard the word like, "you're anorexic." And hearing that actually makes me furious most of the times, because for three reasons. First of all, I don't believe that anybody has a right to comment on another one's body or appearance. Secondly, like, no one really knows what the other one is going through, and so they cannot say words so lightly, because someone might be struggling with an eating disorder, and hearing that in such a way that is so direct and almost like a curse, like a curse word, it makes them feel worse. And third, it's not something that it should be said lightly, because there are so many people that are suffering with eating disorders and anorexia, or even just their body image. And commenting on that creates a really, it has an impact that we cannot understand maybe, but what we say really affects the other. And so when saying, "oh, you're so anorexic," apart from commenting on someone's appearance and saying that so lightly and bothering them, we create the belief again that, okay, they're just thinks that they're anorexic, so everyone that's thin, they're anorexic. And that is also creating stigma around that and generalizing. And again, these mental illness will be misconcepted, and not many people will be aware of the actual effects that it has.
Comments like that, first of all, like obviously not okay. I don't think you should comment on anyone's weight, even if you think that it's a positive comment, because um, even if, like, people often compliment each other, like, oh, like, did you lose weight? You look so good. Which I think is also can be very harmful, even if it's supposed to be with good intentions, because you really have no idea what type of relationship someone else has with their own body, even if to you perceive that they look healthy. Um, they could also be struggling with an eating disorder. And using anorexic to using anorexic as an adjective to describe people who are thinner also plays into a harmful generalization of anorexia itself, because or eating disorders, because it doesn't, like, eating disorders don't have one certain look.
Yeah, I definitely felt that, especially with societal standards of looking thin and like making your body look fit. On TikTok, I see a lot of people trying to lose weight, like for bikini season. Today, I literally just saw someone eating spinach and a blueberry as a joke for the whole day in order to be fit for bikini season. And this image of having a bikini body in order to wear something cute or sexy can definitely trigger younger people's images about themselves too and how they treat their bodies. I think it's really detrimental, especially during COVID-19, when everyone is on social media every day. We see younger generations picking up on these trends every year because of how advanced their technology usage is. And it's even been hard for me because you end up comparing yourselves to others as well on social media and like, oh, should I be eating this? Or like, should I be working out every single day in order to look like this, you know? And that's really triggering for a lot of people.
I agree with that. I also see a lot of TikToks kind of taking almost glamorizing eating disorders, and also ones that
Mm-hmm.
are starting, instead of raising awareness about mental illnesses and eating disorders, they kind of turn it into a trend and just an overall
Yeah.
joke, which is really harmful for people who are
Mm-hmm.
suffering from mental illness, even if it's being created by people who have mental illnesses. And
Yeah.
some can be funny, and I think that sometimes it can be a healthy coping mechanism or comfort others, but sometimes it's ultimately damaging.
Yes, I believe that like indisputably social media have so much power over what the populate their users think. And when they start like joking with that and communicating the idea that, well, we all have a mental illness, or we all have a thing where we're that or that or that, and like we're putting categories we do not necessarily belong to. And so we start being generalized, and our our mindsets are like, okay, so that's what I am. And then you're starting to get people who joke about their mental health, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
that's a coping mechanism for many people. Like sarcasm is a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so when they do it, they might want to be relieved. But then when someone else sees it and they perceive it and they process it in their own minds, they understand something else. And so they start, okay, so I have that too. So what is happening with me? And they have that thought. And then they see many other TikToks, tweets, posts, whatever. And they think, okay, so I have that too. So I have that too, and it's that. And then it might be that serious, but it might not. And when it's not, and they start saying, oh, I'm depressed, oh, I'm OCD, oh, I'm the one, they start making this normal. And by normalizing it, the magnitude of how important it is, it just fades away. And it's not important because like it's bad. It's just that it is a big thing that people have to go through with their lives, because in order to have a mental illness, it means that you cannot function in the way you wish to. And when that happens, you really have lost so much that it's not okay for others to think that this is the norm. Because that one person that really, or 10 or 12 or 100 or 1,000, that really go through something so hard, they will be like, no one takes me seriously when I say it, so why should I matter?
I just wanted to add on that, like, we don't, or at least I'm sure we all don't want to discourage people from, being open about their experiences with mental illness. But I just think the way that it's framed really matters, because we don't want people to start taking something serious like an actual illness so lightly, and or just make it something to joke around about, because although it is very common, so we want to destigmatize it, but we don't want to cross a line where we're normalizing it instead of working towards actual healing, or advocating for things like better mental health care. And we also um, want to be more aware of what type of, if we are sharing about mental illness, what type of messages we're sending younger generations who are looking at our TikToks and looking at these tweets and posts, so that it's something they have more information about and aren't being misinformed or downplaying themselves when they see or hear about mental illness.
Yeah, exactly. Because like even if you believe these things, because the algorithms are still like trying to contribute with what you're interested in. Like on TikTok, obviously if you're going to click on fitness and wellness, it's going to like give you all of these fitness and wellness pages, and like all the algorithms relate to what you're interested in. So then younger kids will be more interested in this, and it really affects their mental health because they get fixated on the situation, like, oh, am I supposed to look this way, like fitting into societal standards of how their bodies are supposed to look.
Yes, and I think that we do not, by any chance, going back to what Juliana said, want to discourage someone to talk about their problem or share it or talk about their mental health, or if they feel that they've been down and they need some help, professional or not, we really need to talk about it, because we don't have to be in a dysfunctional situation to be able to talk about what's been going on with us and saying what we're not good. But it really should be two different things, talking about you and how you feel and what is your problem, whatever magnitude it has in comparison to others, because everyone's problems are important. I think we should stress that enough. And it should be another thing, joking about like I wouldn't joke about having cancer, because I know that like people die from it. So I wouldn't joke about being bipolar either, because I know that people are struggling with it so much. Rika?
Yeah, and in relation to this, like, what I would just wanted to know what you guys would do, because it's hard and confusing to understand if your friends are joking about a mental illness they might or might not have. Because I know that a lot of my friends are like, oh, it's just my depression talking, or like, oh yeah, it's just my anxiety taking over. But like during these situations, like, what would you do in this moment? Because obviously we can't like diagnose them, and like, it's kind of hard to bring up this topic as well, because we don't really know what they're really going through if they bring up this topic as a joke. Like, what would you want to do? Yeah, Ivani?
Yeah, I think you're right. But for me, I would ask my friends like, what is your problem? Like, do you want to talk about it maybe? And maybe see what their problem is. And if they do have a problem that they can be discussed between friends and find a logical solution. And have it, or if I really see a pattern and I really see something not going good, or I see something that is actually not the behavior I'm used to. So if they're close friends of mine, I would also like think about directing them into getting some professional help. But if I can be of help, it would be like more that, I'm here for you. So whatever you feel like you need to share to get it out of your chest, to if it makes you feel better to have someone and maybe talk, not even to me, but like someone who may have had the same problem, and they can talk a little bit through it, share their experience, see that you're not alone. If all that helps, then that's great, and I'm here for you. But if you are not joking and you really have a problem, like, please say to me, we can find a person who can help you. I think
Yeah, that's a
that
really good
it's a
point.
difficult situation. Yeah.
It really is a difficult situation. And like, would you tell your friends to stop making fun of it? Because some people who actually have these disorders might find it really triggering. And like, would you laugh with your friends, or would you like talk to them about it? Give them information about what this disorder really is. But it's kind of hard to tell because what if they also have it too? You know?
I see. It's just that it's really how close you are with a person, and I think it's like a matter of fact that we have some friends, we have some good friends, and we have some really real good friends.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, and you talk with each person like differently and about different topics. So I found myself to be in a position that when I see people joking like continually about the same thing that I do not find funny, or I find serious enough to not be funny, not joking about it
Mm-hmm.
repeatedly, I
Yeah.
will be, well, maybe I will say to them, or maybe not do that joke next time because it's not that funny. And
Yeah,
or maybe
exactly.
if you like, if I see them doing it repeatedly, I would be like, are you really okay? Because sometimes that may be their way of coping and their way of saying like, I'm not okay. But
Mm-hmm.
if it's like just a joke and I really just not funny anymore after some time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like you said before, it depends on how close you are to the person, because obviously if you are closer to that person, you could see them every day and like see if it's an ongoing thing that they talk about. But
Totally.
if it's,
Yeah.
yeah, if it's like someone like, oh, that just continuously jokes about it, you could also just straight up tell them, just be like, hey, I believe that this isn't really a right thing to joke about because it could really trigger some people around in this room. In a lot of Filipinx culture centered families, I've realized that a lot of us don't usually talk about our feelings to our parents because we were raised to be resilient and build up off upon what our parents had to go through when they were younger. Emotional trauma and openness has never been an emphasized topic in my culture, and it was kind of difficult to break that barrier of emotional value in families. I think it's definitely a tough subject to bring up, especially when you're seen as a tough person who could handle themselves. And with this, it's been normalized for family members to call you out if you're either too skinny or too fat, even if it's in a joking way. This could make people self conscious about going to college and changing their diet as a young adult, which is kind of difficult to speak up about. But of course, this is my only experience as a warning, and some families might openly talk about mental health differently. But also, I think that American culture really played a role in my life as well. Like the pursuit of happiness, for example, um, the pursuit of happiness, for example, has always been something we wanted to have, and a lot of the disadvantages which minorities face in American society has triggered a lot of mental health issues throughout centuries of discrimination. I think because of this, my culture has been set up to be resilient and tough, which makes it harder for families to talk about their feelings about it, especially to their children. But right now, with the violence and discrimination that Asian Americans have been facing recently, I just wanted to say that it's really important for older generations to teach their children about the trauma they faced throughout their years of living here and opening about what is going on right now. But even though it should be up to them, it should also be up to younger generations to educate themselves about this and research things centered around discrimination towards minorities in America. I think it's really important because it's a sensitive topic to bring up, but we should also learn about it every single day because it's been happening recently, like the violence of Asian Americans, and the pursuit of happiness has played a role in our goals and motives of our everyday lives. So with that, I'm going to bring it to Juliana.
Yeah, I relate to what you said a lot. My mom and grandma came to the US from the Philippines too. So I grew up watching these strong women overcome so much and work so hard just so that my siblings and I could live a better life and have more. So, I was kind of taught to be just that I should be grateful for that and I should be happy with that and that would be enough. Even just being here in the US is so much more of a privilege than how my grandma grew up. So when I did start experiencing mental illness in middle school, it really felt like a weakness to me. I couldn't understand why I couldn't just be happy with what I had. Seeing my mom um, overcome so many obstacles and keeping that like resilient mindset. And the fact that mental health was never openly discussed, or it used to not be openly discussed in my household. So it was really difficult just not knowing why I was feeling so down, and um, and the way that I was feeling was really confusing to me. I just think that the lack of mental health awareness and the stigma surrounding it really hurts those who are struggling with mental illnesses, and bringing more awareness and education about mental health can make a huge difference with that.
Yes, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, me too. And I believe that one of the biggest problems that actually create the stigma around mental health problems and is the lack of awareness. Because how can you face a problem when you're ignorant about it, or a situation that you don't know even exists?
Mhm. And to conclude this podcast, I'm going to end it with a quote. I am the master of my fate and the captain of my soul by William Ernest Hemingway. We all agreed that it's one thing to hear something or listen to someone, and it's another to think about it and internalize it. On that note, we hope you enjoyed today's episode of Unwind the Mind, and we can't wait to see you next time.